Hello and welcome to Medill Newsmakers. I'm Carly Stone. Today, we're talking about sustainable fashion. The apparel industry is caught up in what's known as fast fashion. This is the rapid production of inexpensive clothing to keep up with ever-changing runway trends. The name also reflects how quickly new clothing ends up in the garbage. The demand for low-cost clothing is pushing fast fashion to its peak. In most industries, inflation pushes prices up, but in the garment industry, prices are going down. The environmental effects of fast fashion are vast. Landfills are full of clothing. Carbon emissions and water pollution are increasing, and so is the plastic count in the oceans. The list goes on, making fashion the third most polluting industry in the world. But there are designers and consumers who are working to decrease their carbon footprint, some of whom are right here in Chicago.
Ever since I was a little kid, the way I was raised, my parents always recycled everything.
If you're in it and you're paying attention, you realize that the practices of the industry are really harming the earth, harming workers. So it becomes hard to really keep going and not questioning these things.
Jamie Hayes of Production Mode is here with me in the studio today, talking about how she keeps her clothing sustainable, and she has some tips on how you can do it too. Jamie, thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Carly.
So you brought some pieces with you. Can you talk about how they're sustainable, what they're made out of, and the process to make them?
Sure. So we'll start here with this jacket. So this is made of a merino wool and cotton fabric that's been felted down. And it was produced by the Weaving Mill, which is just down the street from my studio here in Chicago. It is run by a graduate of Rhode Island School of Design. And she produces everything locally, small batch. So it's really important to me to know the provider and to know, that their practices are clean, sustainable, that the labor is paid in a fair way. Underneath we see leather, it's vegetable tan. It all comes from Horween Tannery, which is also down the street from my studio. And vegetable tanning is an artisanal process. It's the old-fashioned way to tan leather, and really the better way. The newer way uses chromium, and that's a carcinogen and highly toxic both to the workers and also people who wear it. And once it's finished being used, if it ends up in a landfill, obviously that's not going to be a good thing. Horween Tannery has been around in Chicago since 1905. It's actually the last tannery left in Chicago, and it's a unionized shop. So again, I'm able to see how things are produced, build a relationship with my providers, and also keep the money that I'm spending on materials local. Then everything is designed, cut, and sewn in my shop, so paying everyone directly and living wage.
Absolutely, that's amazing, and I love the pieces.
Thank you.
So what tips, Jamie, do you have for consumers who might want to start shopping more sustainably?
So there are a lot. I think the easiest and most important one is really just to buy less and buy higher quality, to take care of what you already own and the things that you do purchase. So think carefully before you buy, and make sure it's something that you really love. So a lot of us look at our closets and there's stuff full of things, but we think, oh, I have nothing to wear. So what would it be like if you opened up your closet, there were less in it, but you really loved every piece? So that's the first tip. And then make sure that, if a button falls off, you learn how to sew it back on, or take it to someone who does. If you gain or lose a few pounds, you can get that piece altered. You can have your shoes resoled. So all that helps you to invest in kind of higher quality pieces that you really do love. So I like to think about things in terms of cost per wear. And so that might justify spending a little bit more money on a piece if you know that you're going to have it for 10 years, if you know that you're going to wear it almost every day. So that's the most important tip, really. The second tip I would say is to research, if you have time, the companies that you purchase from. And if you're purchasing from local designers, we can answer all your questions about where things come from, how ethical they are, how sustainable they are. Nothing's perfect, but we, again, build those relationships with our suppliers and are intimately connected to the production process, whereas most manufacturers are having their production outsourced overseas. So often, even if they want to, they can't really tell you the manner in which things were made. So those are huge issues. These are really important issues as well. Beyond that, I would say consider buying vintage, consider thrift, and also consider clothing swaps. something that might not work for you because maybe your lifestyle, your body has changed, might be perfect on your friend. So these are easy ways and affordable ways to purchase really beautiful and high quality things and keep them out of the waste stream.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks, Carly.
Coming up after the break, shopping local is good for more than just the economy, and where to recycle unwanted clothing so it doesn't end up in a landfill. Welcome back. Before the break, local designer Jamie Hayes shared her advice on how to shop green. But why is the movement towards environmentally friendly fashion so important to so many people? The fashion industry is responsible for 10% of global carbon emissions. That's more greenhouse gas emissions than international flights and maritime shipping combined. It's also responsible for 20% of industrial water pollution, almost 35% of microplastics in the oceans, and 92 million tons of solid waste dumped into landfills each year. As more information is released, designers and consumers alike are starting to recognize the need for more sustainable practices. And right here in Chicago, local designers work together to do their part.
So I thought it would make the store more interesting to have a more range of styles that we offered. So I started inviting in some other designers so that people could have a choice to support them as well.
Local designer and owner of Squashed Boutique in Humboldt Park, Leslie Timpey, is here today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Carly.
So can you talk about how shopping local cuts down on the environmental impact of the fashion industry?
Sure. It does in several ways. One of the main ways is that shopping local, you're actually avoiding a lot of shipping, you're supporting your community, you're coming in just into your neighborhood as opposed to ordering on Amazon, having a lot of packaging and things like that.
Absolutely. And in your shop, what are some things you do to minimize the environmental use of plastics?
We actually make our own clothing line, and so we also carry the work of other independent designers. So whenever I'm buying fabric, if I buy it locally, I always opt to not go for plastic packaging for that. So actually what they do is they'll take a whole tube of plastic wrap and put it on every single roll of fabric that you buy. And I always say, hold the plastic. We're very environmentally conscious about recycling. We use our scraps of our fabrics when we're in production. We also carry other brands that use upcycled fabrics quite a bit at our shop.
That's great. So going off of that, you said that you do a lot of upcycling yourself as well as carry brands who do. Can you talk about that process as well as the longevity of your clothing pieces?
Yes, that's another difference I think in just the quality of shopping local, especially at a store like Squashed where we do carry a little bit higher quality product. The products tend to last longer. They're not throwaway fashion, so we're actually making products that are built to last and that can be worn for multiple seasons.
Absolutely, and you and I were just talking the other day. You had an outfit, I think, that you designed, you've had for 10 years, is that correct?
That is true, yes.
Yep, you wore it at your store party.
That is true. So yes, the outfits tend to last a really long time. I'll be surprised sometimes I'll see a customer on Instagram posting a dress and they'll tag me, oh, it's a Squash dress, and I'll look at it and I'll think, oh wow, that is from 8 years ago or 10 years ago. And these dresses and these garments, the pants, the shorts, the tops, they do tend to last longer. And also the styles that we make are, we try to make things that don't go out of style, that can just kind of go through trends and keep on going. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Leslie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Carly. It was my pleasure.
Up next, a look at the fashionable way to reduce, reuse, and recycle.
This jacket was $10 at Goodwill.
And what to do with your clothes when you're done with them.
At Northwestern, we're wildcats in every way.
Go Northwestern, break right through that. With our colors flying, we will cheer you all the go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victories, for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
We're back. There's a misconception associated with sustainable fashion that all of it's expensive. When compared to a large retailer's $30 dress, a $150 dress from a local designer might send some shoppers back towards fast fashion. But there's an option for those on a budget. Shopping secondhand is not only affordable, but it lends itself to the popular environmental ethos, reduce, reuse, and recycle. I followed Orland Park resident and avid thrift shopper Jill Nachel to learn the tricks of the trade. Michigan Avenue is bustling with shoppers, racing to find fashion's next hot trend. In what's known as fast fashion, retailers rapidly produce inexpensive clothing that matches the latest styles. But it has consequences, many of which affect the environment. But 25-year-old Jill Nachel chooses to thrift shop instead, as a means of recycling clothing by buying used.
I've been thrifting for many years. I focus less on fast fashion. I focus more on kind of style and things that will stay in my closet for a long time. So, for example, this jacket was $10 at Goodwill. And it's from Express, but you would never tell, right? So many different things that you can do with just repurposing and reusing.
It's a great way to recycle. Thrifting is so important for the environment because we keep 700 million pounds of clothing out of the landfills every year. There's so many things that come in here that are even brand new.
Jill Nachel has taken her talents as a thrift shopper and turned it into a career. She currently runs an Etsy store called Shop Alice.
I started repurposing clothes. I taught myself how to sew. I was doing a lot of patchwork on denim.
The average piece of clothing takes 20 to 200 years to biodegrade. So next time you're adding to your wardrobe, consider thrifting as an option to reuse and recycle. And like Jill Nachel says,
let the pieces find you.
Thrift stores such as Savers, Goodwill, and the Salvation Army accept donations of gently worn items to resell. For items with holes or tears, unable to be resold, there are a couple of options within and around the city where residents can bring their clothes to be recycled properly. Chicago Textile Recycling and Use Again are two places locals can drop off used clothing that isn't in a condition to be resold. Both companies accept clothing items such as t-shirts, jeans, dresses, and jackets, as well as undergarments, belts, purses, and paired shoes. Household linens, like towels and beddings, can also be recycled. The full list of acceptable and non-acceptable items can be found online. The Chicago Textile Recycling Dropbox is located in Hillside, Illinois, and Use Again has locations across the city. Find the closest to you at www.usagain.com. It's important to note that clothing cannot go into the blue recycle bins. The entire bin will have to be dumped rather than recycled. So, when you're ready for a new wardrobe, don't forget to reduce, reuse, and recycle when you're cleaning out your closet. And when you shop, consider shopping local or shopping secondhand. Thank you for watching Medill Newsmakers. I'm Carly Stone. Have a great day.